Question 6 is another critical thinking question, so let's look to the end and we can see that we're being asked which of the following best expresses the main conclusion of the above argument. So let's go through the argument. Wide-ranging increases in the cost of bringing a civil court case, recently announced by the UK government, are an assault on citizens' access to law. It is tantamount to treating justice as a commodity. They will increase fees by more than 1,000% for claims of £200,000 or more. They will deter individuals and small businesses from taking civil court cases for fear that if they lose, they will be crippled by the cost of trying to get their money back. All civil cases, from divorces to landlords trying to get their property back, are affected. If justice is to be out of the reach of the majority of ordinary people, the government must think again. The civil courts are the backbone of a fair society and a prosperous economy. So before we look through the options of what might best express the conclusion, let's try and find a line which does so within the actual paragraph. So the crux of the argument appears to be that this is an assault on the citizen's right to law because it affects ordinary people, namely individuals and small businesses, from taking cases to court. It cites some examples like divorces or landlords trying to get their property back, and ultimately says that justice is out of the reach of ordinary people, and this appears to be the central point of the argument, leading to the conclusion that government must think again. Now let's look through the arguments made in the 5 options and see what they say. A suggests that the planned increase in court fees is an attack on people's ability to seek justice, reiterating what was said earlier. Now, although this appears to be the forerunner of the argument, this isn't the conclusion, namely that ordinary people are affected, not just people, as stated here, and that the government must ultimately think again. This does not take into account of a healthy portion of the argument being made, so we can discount this as best expressing the conclusion of the argument. Option B says that government is treating justice as a saleable object. Although this is very similar to this line here in the argument that it's tantamount to treating justice as a commodity, this isn't necessarily the conclusion of the argument, or expresses it best. It appears to be an element of editorialising to support the argument ultimately made that there needs to be a change to improve the conditions of ordinary people being able to access law. So we can discount this one. Option C says that individuals and businesses will be put off taking their grievances to court. Although the argument definitely does say that individuals and small businesses will be deterred for fear of losing and being crippled by the cost, this argument doesn't necessarily include the crux of the argument focusing on ordinary people being able to access law, those people who fear the crippling cost of losing. So this may include very wealthy individuals and very large businesses who perhaps don't fall into the remit of this argument, and anyway it doesn't express the main conclusion of the argument that the condition of ordinary people must be improved by action of government. Option D says that government needs to reconsider, or justice will be inaccessible to most people. Now this does firmly reiterate what's said in this line here about justice being out of the reach of the majority, which is then compounded in the previous lines by citing evidence and examples of people being put off because of excessive and increased costs. So this closely reflects the main conclusion of the argument in this line, which is supported by the previous lines. Finally, E says that civil courts are crucial to fairness and prosperity. Although this is the final line of the piece, so may be mistaken for the conclusion, we can know that it's not the conclusion, because if this was all we took away from this large paragraph, we'd miss out the importance of the increased cost from government policy and the need for something to be done about it because of what's being done to individuals and small businesses being deterred from taking costs. If we just took this at face value, we'd miss out a lot of the piece, so it's not the main conclusion of the argument. This gives us our answer, which is D, that government needs to reconsider or justice will be inaccessible to most people.